What's up guys, it's me Jeremy, and today we're going to be doing another late game commentary. So jumping right into this one, if we take a look at the score, you'll notice that my team is actually just a little bit behind while I'm actually extremely fed. And so you say, well, how are you so far behind if you're actually really fed, Jeremy? And that's because our bot lane is actually 1-9, and, well, Fiora, just being a typical Fiora player, as you saw there, nothing too out of the ordinary. She did go somewhat even in lane though, as well as Jarvan's pretty much even too. And so at this point in the game, it's basically just up to me. That's what I'm thinking here. I'm thinking, okay, I pretty much have to carry our team here. And I'm on a great champion to do that. Ari mid lane is an excellent kit for making plays, especially in team fights. So I know I'm in a pretty decent spot. It's pretty much me against the enemy team right now. I'm hoping that I can do my best. We're prepping, trying to get vision. We see the Baron's unwarded. There actually could be taking Baron here, since we don't really have great ward coverage. Our support player isn't, exactly the best. However, the fact remains that I could have bought those wards, just because my support player is playing poorly doesn't mean I couldn't have bought those wards to ward Baron. And I probably should have bought some wards here too, but I'm really focusing on a build that will help me solo carry the game, and so I'm going to go for a Void Staff. Zhonya's Rabadon's Void Staff, it's very high damage with at least a little bit of survivability with the Zhonya's to give me extreme outplay potential. So overall, it's just a build that's going to help me solo carry the entire game. It might not be the best build possible here. I'm by no means an Ari expert, but anyways, I felt like this build was pretty solid to help me do the best that I could to carry team fights, which was really my goal here from heading on. And of course, we see Fiora being a typical Fiora player getting caught. Nothing too surprising. It pretty much meets my expectations. You don't really want to get carried away or go on tilt from the play of your teammates, so it's something too surprising. Vi actually steps really close here. I don't know what she's doing, but they do pick up the kill on Jarvan. I'm able to get the kill on Vi and get out because I do have my ultimate. Our team, bot lane, picks up Dragon. I don't really know why they're doing Dragon, especially since, of course, as you can see, the other team got Baron since we didn't have any wards. So not the best play for bot lane to be Dragon. However, I kind of put that blame on myself, considering it would have been very easy for me to stop that by simply saying, hey guys, don't do Dragon. Like, it's really that simple. So in that sense, I'm not really doing my best to communicate the best plays to my teammates, so that's something that I could have been doing instead. But anyways, our opponents are going to be pushing down mid lane here. Jarvan did get caught, but I know that since we picked up the Vi, it's not really too big of a deal. They're going to have a tough time sieging since they don't really have a front line that could potentially tank towers, as well as their dive potential is pretty much nothing considering the rest of their team is pretty squishy. So I'm going to place down my pink ward here. We're going to do our best to just push out the lanes. Jarvan's back up, so we know we're at least in somewhat of a decent spot. We're just going to try to get some wards out. We are actually pretty behind here, especially because of the Baron that they took. So we're trying to be safe, play safe, no one get caught. And even though Fiora did get caught a couple times that led to free deaths, it was actually not really that significant since the only thing that they took out of her getting caught was top tower, whereas the Baron was pretty much unrelated to her getting caught. So her getting caught didn't matter that much in this sense. It was more the poor vision as well as, lack of communication from our team. And so I'm just trying to push out the mid lane here, get some vision. Pushing out the mid lane is a great way to get vision since it's going to most likely will pretty much always show opponents, and as you can see, we see about 3 or 4 of them on the map there and in the mid lane. So we know where they are. We know that we're probably not going to get caught here. We're safe to go into our own jungle. So Yasuo, they're starting to invade. Fiora puts out kind of a weird ward, so I go there. Vi's actually starting to go on me, and I know that if I get caught here, my team is screwed. So I have to use my ultimate, right? I don't want to take any risks. No, maybe I'll dodge it. Maybe this will happen. So I use my ultimate here, and I'm going to just try to clear the mid lane, and boom, charm on the Caitlyn right there. Free kill. Amazing play. And then I get out with my flash and Zhonya's, and then my team proceeds to clean up the remaining 4v5. And so I managed to turn a situation where it was almost near death into pretty much a face roll team fight. And the thing is that if you're in a situation where you're about to get caught like I was in that Vi, if that Vi had hit her Q onto me, she would have followed it up with her ultimate, and I would have been dead and pretty much immediately. Even with the Zhonya's, I probably still would have been dead. And the thing is that you have to respect your opponents in that sense. And so since I respected the Vi, I used my ultimate as, okay, Ari loses her ultimate, that's pretty bad, but I have to. I can't, I'm not going to take risks. Maybe she'll miss, maybe I was out of range. No, you got to take the full 100%. If I use my ultimate, I will dodge this ability and my team will not be screwed. And that's what happened. And so I was able to turn it around, and with the last charge of my ultimate, I was able to get a pretty fancy charm onto the Caitlyn, actually. If you saw there, my W killed the creeps, and then my E was able to throw out, and we catch the Caitlyn. And so overall, it was a pretty amazing team fight for our team. I was able to get a prime pick onto the carry, which is a great way to carry team fights in this stage of the game. You know, it's not necessarily super late game, but it is pretty far into the game. And so, you know, 2-3 items, as well as, well, 3 items now after that team fight. And so it's a great play to make on the Caitlyn, and is an excellent step towards carrying our team here. I know that kind of play is exactly what our team needed, and so now we're in a great spot. We can probably 5v5, considering that I didn't really pick up most of the kills from that fight, so the other players on my team are starting to get some gold rolling. You know, they're starting to get some items, get some power, and so I'm not necessarily the only threat on my team now, and so I'm allowed to play like that too, especially considering that I really could just need to hit some crowd control, hit some burst, and then survive. As long as I'm not really dying, as long as I don't get caught, you know, my team's in a pretty solid spot, considering that I'm going to have an easy time hitting skill shots due to the enemy team's, you know, melee, assassin nature, Riven, Yasuo, Vi. It's going to be pretty easy for me to hit my skill shots in team fights. And so they're going to go for a play on the bottom tower here. And I don't really know what this positioning is. Look where Caitlyn, look where Riven is. 2 squishy players. Whereas Vi, you know, she's also out of position too, especially with the Jarvan ult. Great Jarvan ultimate. We get a pick onto the Vi. And that's a play right there that I want to point out, is because as the rest of our team cleans up this fight quite nicely, you know, you don't want to be afraid to focus tanks. And so, since we're able to just burst down the Vi really quickly, you know, with the bonus damage from my charm, as well as, you know, a combined focus from our entire team, as well as since I was able to zone out the Riven there on the side, and Caitlyn was kind of out of the fight since the Jarvan ult was putting her in a bad spot. Since we focus the tank, you know, we can kill the tank quite quickly, as since all 5 of us just go for the tank. And then after that, we can just kind of face roll the entire team down. And so that wasn't even a play by me. That was kind of just poor positioning by the opponents. A mistake by the opponents. The first fight was definitely a pretty solid play by me with the charm on the Caitlyn. But this fight here, you know, it's just kind of our opponents making a really big mistake. And so the rest of our team, we take advantage of that. And even though we were pretty far behind at the beginning, especially since they did pick up that free Baron, you know, we put ourselves in a good spot. And Vi kind of goes for an aggressive play here, and they don't really have vision, and so we're able to come from the side. Since they don't have vision on the area that Jarvan as well as myself were hiding, it puts the opponents in a spot where they kind of just go for the Lucian with no vision, and you never really want to make plays without vision. And so now we're left with a 3v5. I get my Zonias out. Riven doesn't actually die here, but we're able to, I believe, take down the Yasuo. Yes, the Yasuo goes down. Caitlyn's actually trying to make a play here on the Lucian. She gets really, really close, but Riven's coming in. I tried thinking about charming Caitlyn, but I decided I was probably going to save her for the Riven since she was the major threat here, as well as since Caitlyn, of course, gets soloed out by Jarvan, and, well, that's the game. And so that was a pretty good example, I thought, of me carrying a game. I don't really play mid lane that often. I mostly play support. I think if I was playing support, you know, that game probably would have still been able to carry by me, considering the bot lane was the reason that we didn't smash that game in the first place, since they were so far behind. But overall, I think that was a pretty solid game. Carried my teammates quite well on a role that I'm not most experienced on. Made some solid plays, did some great work, and if you're wondering why I haven't been making that many videos lately, it's because I'm actually working on a really, really big project, and so stay tuned for that. Hopefully you guys will look forward to that as much as I look forward to making it and working on it. It should be out pretty soon. So, as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.